Right. Good afternoon or morning or whatever time it is. Obviously, we're in crossing time zones today. And in addition, I guess this virus situation has meant that time has almost no meaning anymore. So wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. I'm going to be talking today about how we've raised the bar for teams using AWS. The Lightning Talk topics were, there were sort of 5 to choose from. One of them was how I raised. No doubt loads of people are talking about raising money. I'm talking about bar raising, improving the quality of something. So if you're building a SaaS platform, it's relatively likely that you're doing so on AWS. AWS is, of course, the leading cloud provider worldwide by total revenues. And so you are probably working with that platform today, or your teams are. Somebody in your business is probably doing this. And I think it's important to ask the question, how do you know whether you've made good architectural choices? If you are using that platform, there's a lot of AWS. The platform is quite involved. It's changing all the time. New things are popping up constantly. There's a lot of it. If you probably need some help figuring out whether you've made those good architectural choices properly. You might also be wondering, am I spending too much? Or your CFO might be wondering, am I spending too much? Which is a reasonable question. I think in the early days of the cloud, people used to talk about cloud as being cheaper. I think we've probably nixed that notion these days. It's certainly more flexible and has other benefits as well. You can move faster, but it's not necessarily cheaper. Are you spending too much for what you're doing? Is your platform secure enough? Is your security up to scratch? Does your team understand what they're doing? Like, how would you know when something's gone wrong? Like, would you know what to do if that was to happen? And so there's a mechanism for answering these questions that we call WellArchitected, and that's a program from AWS that my team at the Scale Factory is part of that program. We've reviewed over 200 workloads for AWS users and given them good feedback on how to improve things. So WellArchitected is it's a set of design principles. They're documented in white papers. There's also a review tool that's provided in the console. If you're an Amazon user today, you can go and have a look for that in the console and work through the questions in there yourself. And the WellArchitected review framework considers operations, things about security, reliability, performance, efficiency, and cost optimization. And these are things that are probably relevant to you, regardless of what your business area is. There's something in here that you probably care about. In addition to the main pillars, WellArchitected provides a number of lenses, and those lenses are a way of asking questions about those 5 pillars across specific types of workloads. So maybe you're using Lambda and you're building a serverless application. There are some additional questions that can be asked around that. Maybe if you're building an IoT platform, there are another set of questions, mostly about security, to be honest. The S in IoT stands for security. And you can learn about how your platform is designed using these review tools in this white paper. There are actually more lenses than this. AWS have released 2 more in the last couple of weeks, but I put these slides together previously. I didn't have time to update them. So as I say, we've reviewed over 200 platforms running on AWS, and we joined the WellArchitected program in 2018. We're actually one of the most experienced partners worldwide in this program, so you'd be in safe hands getting us to look at what you're doing. The WellArchitected review is it's 46 questions. If you are doing that with a partner like us, we typically find it takes about 4 hours to cover. We sort of run this in a very conversational style. We'll ask you questions about what you've built and how you've made your choices. We'll give you some recommendations along the way, and we provide that as a report. And at the end of the review process, if you engage with us or another AWS partner to make changes to improve your platform, then AWS will provide you with $5,000 worth of funding in order to make those improvements, or help pay for those improvements. So it's worth doing from a financial perspective as well as an operational one. But anyway, you're not really here to listen to me sell this to you. Let's talk about what we found. So I went through the data from those 200 odd reviews in order to put together an understanding of the things that people are generally getting wrong or often stumbling upon, and the general findings that we we've discovered as part of this process is that teams are much better at building platforms than they are at securing or running them. So there are a number of questions in the framework about how you've chosen your particular compute service, or how you've chosen your database products, or how you've chosen your storage products. We tend to find that teams working with AWS have done a good job of that. So typically, you're looking for a story where, if you're storing time series data, then you're probably storing it in a time series database. If you're storing graph data, then you're probably storing it in a graph database. If you're storing files, they're probably in S3. If you're running some kind of big data processing, you're maybe using Elastic MapReduce. Teams are pretty good at making those technical decisions for the most part. They're doing a good job there. Where they're not doing well is in the operations story. So 75% of the teams that we've reviewed don't actually know how they would respond to a security incident. So in the event that their network was broken into, or data was exfiltrated, or they lost credentials, they've maybe sort of checked their Amazon keys into GitHub, which we've seen customers do by accident before, and cause themselves a painful bill from Bitcoin mining. Most teams don't know today how they would respond to that sort of security incident. And one of the ways in which WellArchitected can help is to highlight this as a problem, so that you can spend time thinking about potential security failure modes and working out how you would respond, building playbooks, putting tools in place to allow forensics and so forth. You might be one of these teams. Have a look deep inside yourself and ask yourself, do I know what I would do in the event of a security incident? The answer is probably no, based on what we found. Similarly, 67% of teams don't have a disaster recovery plan. In the event that your data goes missing because of some configuration mishap, or you accidentally delete a database in production rather than staging, 67% of teams don't know how they would recover from that because they haven't thought about it in advance. And good operations is about thinking about eventualities and designing for those eventualities, and knowing what you would do ahead of time, so that in the event that such a thing does happen, you're already prepared. I've got a webinar that I've run. I will, if you want to get in touch, I can show you the link to the video about dealing with uncertainty and planning for risk around that. 48% of teams in 2020 are still deploying some of their software changes manually. DevOps was coined in 2009, which is when we founded the Scale Factory, and DevOps is all about automation. 48% of teams still, 11 years on, are making manual changes, which is pretty bad. I think that if you're making manual changes, you are likely to be causing defects when you roll stuff out. You're likely to be releasing more slowly than you could. In the event of a failure of some kind where you need to deploy software in order to get things back up and running again, your mean time to recovery is going to be longer if you're deploying changes manually. Looking at your software delivery lifecycle and properly automating those is a really good way to improve your platform. And looking at the stats that we have here, half of you are probably in the position where you need to do that. 42% of teams, again, this is a security thing, provide their staff with too broad a set of permissions. So most teams have users per developer on an AWS platform. That's a good thing to do, but 42% of teams are giving those users probably administrative rights where they can do anything that they want, see any data on the platform. GDPR suggests that that's not a good idea. There are other security regimes where that would not be a good idea. You should be limiting the permissions that your developers have, so that you're reducing the likelihood of them causing problems or getting at data that they shouldn't. 60% of teams are not alerting when monitoring identifies risks. So there's not enough telemetry going on in those platforms. So you don't know when there is a problem to solve because the system isn't telling you. And these are all areas that are reasonably easily improved if you invest in them, but less obviously a good thing to spend time on when you could be developing features. So these are areas that you should probably look at. We've, as I say, delivered 200 of these reviews and improved most of those platforms using the funding available from AWS. And here's a number of ways in which we've done that. So cost reduction, improving monitoring, getting CI pipelines performing better, training teams on fundamentals, getting security, secrets management better, scaling out to new regions, any number of those things. We've got a good track record of working with SaaS businesses, and we'd like to help you if you're an AWS customer. So please do get in touch. We've got a booth. You can hear a bit more about WellArchitected. I'd be happy to answer some questions about it as well. Thanks.